अदिति त्यागी और आप देख रहे हैं अदिति त्यागी ऑफिशियल। अगर आपने चैनल को अभी सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है तो एकदम फौरन सब्सक्राइब कीजिए, क्योंकि मैं ऐसी आवाजों को अपने प्लेटफॉर्म पर लेकर आती हूँ जो कि ग्राउंड पर काम करती हैं, जो जिन्होंने कंट्रीब्यूट किया है उस रेलेवेंट टॉपिक पर प्रैक्टिकली in terms of experience also. So today we have Colonel Miri with us, who was the advisor to Israeli Prime Minister at one point in time. There's a lot happening in that region, and I thought that I should request some time from Colonel Miri. So first of all, thank you so much for joining, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. First of all, let's begin with the US-Iran deal. We have seen President Trump being optimistic about it. He wants to explore all the opportunities that's available to him, and he wants to exhaust all the possibilities of achieving this deal. Whereas we have also noticed a certain skepticism on the part of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. How do you see this current situation unfolding, not just for Israel or Iran, but also for the region?
So the US-Iran negotiation is about the nuclear issue. And in that sense, the United States said at the beginning that it would not just be the nuclear issue. Iran said they would only come about the nuclear issue. What are the issues then that are in dispute? And these are the ones that Prime Minister Netanyahu has been emphasizing. Two additional issues. One is the missile capacity of the Islamic regime of Iran. They have missiles that can reach 2,000 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers, 5,000 kilometers. That really is the entire world. And Israel has stated clearly that the negotiations should be about putting a cap on the distance of the missiles that the Islamic regime of Iran manufactures. So that's one issue, which if it's not on the table, those are the kind of missiles that were fired against Israel in June of 2025, and by the way, also in 2024. Those missiles can hit you in India. Those missiles can hit anywhere in the world. So limiting the distance of those missiles is something which is important for everybody in the world. The second issue, which is not on the table, is the issue of the Islamic regime's proxies. The word proxy is the different armed terror organizations that are inspired by the Islamic regime, but inspiration is one thing. They are armed by that regime, trained by that regime, supplied by that regime. I'm talking about the Yemenite Houthis that have disrupted shipping paths for the entire world. Of course, about Lebanese Hezbollah that Israel has been very active against. But it's also about Iraqi Hezbollah. And in that sense, these different proxies are of importance, not just against Israel. Lebanese Hezbollah disrupts Lebanese life, disrupted in the past Syrian life. And in that sense, not talking about the Islamic regime's support of those proxies, these are the gaps. Meaning everybody agrees on the nuclear, but on the table, the gaps are why are they not talking with the Islamic regime of Iran about the missiles and about the proxies?
And then also removing the enriched uranium that exists. Some put the figure at 400 kgs, and also giving up on their nuclear program. Do you see some positive developments in the days ahead? Do you think it won't bear any fruit? President Trump might be optimistic, but as I said earlier, Israel has been very skeptical about it.
So here's that gap that I think that we have to live with sometimes. It's so important for the entire world that Iran, the Islamic regime, should not have any kind of nuclear capability, which would be military nuclear capability. And that's good news for the world. But let's put it into perspective. When they were in the agreement, they weren't stopping all of their nuclear quest. And that's part of the gap of the reason that at the time President Trump left the nuclear agreement that was already signed, because Iran was not complying with what it had agreed to. So I want to say the Islamic regime, are in a worse position than they were when they were negotiating a decade ago, 10 years ago. And in that sense, I want to hope that it's more important for the Islamic regime to have a strong country, to build an economy for their country, because they're under crippling sanctions, and all of that because of the nuclear issue, that they want to have a future for their own people, and that future is not about having military nuclear capability. It's about building a visible, strong country, which is one for its people. And so in that I am hopeful, because the demonstrations, the riots, the horrific killing of Iranians that we saw the end of December, beginning of January, domestically in Iran, comes out of that background, that the Islamic regime have invested in nuclear weapons and not in their own people, in missiles and in supplying proxies, and not in building, for example, a water system. They don't have water in their pipes. They don't have electricity in their homes, which is almost ridiculous for a country that has oil and is 90 million strong and should not be in a situation where it has no water and no electricity.
Just to give it a perspective, Iran says that they cannot do away with their ballistic missiles because those are the missiles which defend when the country comes under attack. How would you respond to that?
The Islamic regime of Iran has posted for the last 45 years that it needs to defend itself. But when you look at what the Islamic regime of Iran has done, it invested in three aspects of its country, and none of them had to do with their people. It invested in missiles that go 3,000 to 5,000 kilometers, and I'm asking why? Who are they defending? They invested in military nuclear capabilities. Who are they defending? Who is threatening them? And they invested in the proxies. And as I said before, they did not invest, and this is their own decisions. This has nothing to do with anybody else. Why do they have no water in their pipes? Because they didn't put money for building a system of water in the pipes. Think of India, 1,400,000,000 people. You expect your government to invest that you have water for agriculture, water to run inside your home. You expect to have sewage. You expect to have electricity. And these are core issues in a democracy like India. In a theocracy like Iran, you expect that to be a given. So all of their responses to me are only about excuses. They put high up on the things that they need to do is to annihilate Israel, or in the terms that they call every single day, the Zionist entity. How do you annihilate the Zionist entity? Through nuclear capability, through long-range missiles, and through the proxies. And in that sense, I could say to Iran, just invest in your economy like Israel has. We're in the same drought. We have the same water problems. We went to desalination. That takes money. That takes government investment. And I would call on the Islamic regime to stop talking theocracy and the annihilation of us and to start investing in their own country.
So, Miri, if Iran refuses to adhere to stop their ballistic missile program, if they refuse to give in to what Israel is saying, and in case this deal doesn't come through, we have seen a huge build-up on the part of US as well, with Armada and and then Israel also saying that Israel would fight with or without US. How do you see this whole scenario unfolding? When I'm asking you this question, the predominant thought that comes to my mind is, are the strikes imminent against Iran? Or do you think there's still a little bit of hope somewhere?
So I described that gap. At the end, Iran is coming to the table to talk about the nuclear. And the nuclear is most definitely the biggest threat both to the region and to the world. And I'm not against the US sitting down and talking about that nuclear threat. And I don't necessarily say that you have to take care of the missiles and the proxies. I just want to point out that the missiles definitely hinder all of the region. And the proxies are used against Israel. But for example, the Houthis have been used against the whole world when they closed the shipping route of the Bab el-Mandeb, of the approach towards the Suez Canal. And I say that because I think that they will still negotiate the nuclear issue. So it's not imminent. And the United States is absolutely a superpower, and they can say the issue is the nuclear and not the missiles and the proxies, and they can arrive in an agreement. And if so, I think that the United States would not do a military attack against Iran. I do not see in any case Israel initiating an attack against Iran. This is about the US against the Islamic regime, that Islamic regime that just killed tens of thousands of its own population, who went out to protest, not Israel. They went out to protest the fact that they don't have water, they don't have an economy, they don't have an electricity, and the money goes to nuclear and proxies and missiles. And so it isn't imminent, the attack, but for the negotiation of the US with the Islamic regime to be effective, it has to have a clear, real threat. The Islamic regime won't come to the table otherwise. The buildup of the US forces is a credible one. It's a real threat. The United States have used those forces both against the Islamic regime. In June of last year, the United States attacked the core nuclear sites. The United States have used their military, their capabilities against Venezuela not too long ago, a credible threat, and they're building up those capabilities against the Islamic regime. So I think that in that sense, yes, there can be negotiations. I think that is what we would call, and I'm smiling, coercive diplomacy, meaning they won't come to the table if you don't make them. And making them is not telling them to come. It's actually sending real forces. And I have to say, I will never predict what President Trump will do. And it's very important for all of the people watching to understand that when you build a credible threat, it means that you're willing to use it. And I absolutely think that President Trump is willing to use it. That's why it's a credible threat. So maybe he'll use it. But I do think that he would prefer, if possible, to not have to use it. But I want to be clear. He will use it if he needs to. And that's up to him to decide. So that buildup is there. It's not about Israel. It's about Iran. It's about the Islamic regime. If the US attack Iran, I have no doubt that the Islamic regime of Iran will attack Israel. And there's the question of what Israel will do, because I think we'll respond. But I in no scenario do not see Israel, before anybody else, preempting or doing anything against the Islamic regime. Again, this is about the US and Iran and nuclear, and let's hope that they arrive at a resolution that stops Iran from going nuclear. That would be good news for the world.
Thank you so much. And by the way, for clarity, I was not doing any kind of warmongering, but I was getting to hear so much from here and there, and so many experts and everybody came. Every day there's a speculation that US would attack Iran and Israel would join, and this will happen and that would happen. So a lot of speculation around it. So that's why I thought that you are the best voice to answer this question, and you answered it with so much of clarity. I think all the speculation has been put to rest. Now, let me move back to Israel and the internal security. And my question is, we have seen what happened in October attack. Do you think Israel is now much better prepared to avert any such attack?
In June of 2025, when the Islamic regime attacked with missiles, are you talking about the October 7th or about
October 7th? I'm talking about the October attack, the Hamas.
Yes. I think that what Israel's policy, and here I'm talking military policy, okay? There's a difference between diplomacy and governmental. Here I'm talking military policy. I think that Israel's military policy changed drastically after October 7th. And I will state categorically that even if Hamas would try to do an October 7th type attack, or Hezbollah, or Syrian Islamic State from Syria, I'm just, because there are other options, but on our borders, the Israeli military is prepared in a way that we were not prepared on October 7th. The question I'm going to pose for us is that sustainable? How long can you hold that amount of military troops, the reserve duty, the capabilities, meaning you cannot do right now a cross-border attack at 60 different locations simultaneously, from the air, from the ground, from the sea, not by Hamas, not by Hezbollah, certainly not by anything in Syria. And I say that because we're prepared and we've built different defenses and we've deployed our military in a different way. And I'm not worried about an October 7th attack. But, and this is a but I want people to be aware of, Hamas can still fire a rocket at Israel. We would not be able to stop 1, 2, 10 rockets. And think of how that would be covered. Look, after 2 years and 5 months, Hamas can still fire rockets at Israel. Of course they can. October 7th was not about firing rockets into Israel. October 7th was about a full-scale military terror assault at 60 different places, attacking 35 different communities, butchering, killing, taking hostages, and firing rockets. They can still fire rockets. They can't fire 100 at once or 400 at once, which is what they did on October 7th. They can still fire singular ones. So they still exist, Hamas. The ideology completely exists, but their military terror capability is greatly reduced, and they cannot do an October 7th type attack. And the same, by the way, goes for Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think peace stabilization force is a good idea over there? And is it yielding the results that Israel would have hoped for? And I also like to point out, as I was reading, and you can correct me because I read it online, that there have been some 500 kilometers of tunnels, out of which some 150 kilometers have been destroyed by the Israeli forces. So probably that also explains how Israel has gone about its internal security. But how much do you trust the world when it comes to peace stabilization force?
So I'm going to take the last portion of your question and say you accidentally, perhaps without knowing, quoted the Prime Minister yesterday. Yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu was speaking in a public event, and Prime Minister Netanyahu said that there's 500 kilometers of Hamas underground subterranean tunnels, and that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, have destroyed 150 kilometers. So that was an absolute spot-on quote. And what that means is that after 2 years and 5 months, we've only destroyed 150 kilometers, because the additional 350 kilometers of subterranean capabilities are under the area where Israel is not, meaning in the Gaza Strip, okay, in the areas where we still are deployed. There are lines, there's a Gaza line, and there's a red line, and a yellow line. They're all on a map, okay? They're not on the ground. But we destroyed systematically. It takes an enormous amount of strength to destroy 1 kilometer. And then you have to do another kilometer. And I'm being on purpose slow, okay? It's taken us 2 years and 5 months to destroy 150 kilometers. It could take another, think of the time, what we need to do this for another 5 years to destroy it all. And I put it out there because when you ask about the International Stabilization Force, when you ask about who is going to go in, there are 2 different questions. One is who is going to run the Gaza Strip. And clearly it cannot and should not be Hamas. And that's a clear-cut question. And if they are not running it, you need somebody else to run it. But in addition, you need, and this is part of Israel's demand, to disarm the capabilities that Hamas still had. I just described. They only have some rockets, but they still have rockets. They still have tens of thousands of weapons, because from 2007 until now, that's a generation. That's almost 20 years. For the last 19 years, they are the ones who ran the Gaza Strip. And they did so by using the strength of their arms. They also did not build sewage systems or water systems or electricity, because they're a terror organization. They don't care about that, like the Islamic Republic of Iran with 90 million people. So an international stabilization force is supposed to come in and disarm Hamas. On that, Aditi, I can say clearly, I have no expectation of an international stabilization force coming into the areas of the Gaza Strip that Israel is not in, and coming to a Hamas fighter and taking the arms. But, and this is important, if they are there, because none of them have yet come in, they've only committed, but none of them are in. If they come in, Hamas will not be able to bear their arms openly on the streets the way they are doing right now. That's a big change. They have to go underground. What's underground? Still a good 350 kilometers of a subterranean arena. But again, the world agrees that Hamas needs to be disarmed. The Indian Prime Minister has said so. India is far away. But even the Pakistanis have said so, meaning the different countries agree that Hamas should not be armed, that somebody else should run the Gaza Strip. Okay? They haven't said Hamas should be destroyed as an ideology, but they have said that Hamas should not be armed. And I say, let's take it a step at a time. If somebody else inside the Gaza Strip is bearing the arms, that's a step better than it is today in February of 2026. And if Hamas is not going to run the Gaza Strip, that's way better than what we have right now, where they are the de facto ruler in the areas that Israel is not in.
Okay, so you mentioned Pakistan. I have read some statements from their defense minister as well. If I'm not wrong, he has said that we will go there for peacekeeping, but we will not fight Hamas.
Nobody.
And there have been reports that Pakistani establishment has been meeting Hamas leadership in Pakistan. And then when we talk about Pakistan, Pakistan is also a country which their passport, they have so much of hatred for Israel that their passport says that its citizens cannot go to Israel. Please correct me if any of this has been taken out of context, but these are certain things which come to my mind when you mention Pakistan.
I'm with you, but I'm going to add, Turkey says that they won't disarm Hamas, and Turkey hosts some of the heads of Hamas. Qatar, that is funding most of this, hosts most of the heads of Hamas. So in this case, I'm just going to say Pakistan, together with Turkey, they used to have diplomatic ties with Israel, together with Qatar, that is one of the main negotiators. And I have to add in Egypt, that detests Hamas, won't disarm Hamas. So as I said, let's take it one step at a time. I'm not going to say that I'm for this. I'm just saying, for me as an Israeli, at this stage, taking it one step at a time, if they, Pakistan, Turkey, Qatar, and I don't like any of those three, but the first force that has said that they're going to come there are Indonesia, okay? Far away. If they come in and are an alternative so that Hamas won't show themselves openly on the street, that's already different. To me, I'm even going to say better than what's right now. It means that somebody else rules in the Gaza Strip. It means that Hamas is not the official authority that bears arms. I agree with you. That's not disarming Hamas, and that's what scares all of Israelis. But I'm taking it one step at a time. The International Stabilization Force, in accordance to what President Trump said, it's all about the war of words, because it doesn't say there disarm. It says demobilize. It's a subtle difference in words. Okay? I am willing, as an Israeli right now, to start with demobilizing, because it means that they can't openly use those arms without the wrath, the anger of the forces that are inside the Gaza Strip, that are there to help the Gaza Strip. Okay? How can they use arms against Israel if there are Indonesian, Pakistani, Turkish, Qatari, all of these ones that I don't want to have, but I understand will be there. Okay? Again, everybody will always blame Israel in the war of words, but this is a subtle difference that Hamas is not allowed to bear arms. Okay? They're not supposed to bear arms. And they may have the arms, but they're not allowed to bear the arms. That's way better than what we have right now. And I want to hope that a force does come in there, because in the meantime, from October 13th or 20th, when Israel left the portions of the Gaza Strip that we were in, the heavily populated areas, and I'm glad that we did so, and we got back 20 live hostages that had been held for 2 years by Hamas in horrible, the 20 live ones at the end. They had taken 251. But when we think about that, that's October, November, December, January, we are in February, where Hamas is reasserting itself with its arms on the street as the only authority there. So I want the International Stabilization Force. I prefer Hamas having to go underground than their being outside. Of course, I would prefer to be disarmed, okay? But I need to be realistic, and it's similar to what I said about the Islamic regime of Iran. The nuclear is an absolute threat for the world, okay? Israel, am threatened very directly by the missiles that were used against me and the proxies that were used against me, okay? So everybody else can poo-poo them. But let's take it a step at a time. That would be better than where we are right now. That Hamas is not the ruler, is not allowed to bear arms, even if it means, for me, that a country that has no diplomatic ties with Israel, that, as you said on their passport, says that if you come to Israel, then I think that you would go to jail. And Lebanon, by the way, has the same law. We don't have diplomatic ties with Lebanon, that if somebody talks to an Israeli in Lebanon, they're allowed to be put on trial and put into jail. So I want to hope that we get past these things in the Middle East. I want to hope that people don't see us as the source of all evil, because by calling Israel the source of all evil, you are quoting the Islamic regime of Iran. That is exactly what the Islamic regime of Iran have said for the last 45 years. It's what Hamas says. We are the source of all evil. Destroy Israel. And guess what? Evil disappears from the world. That was me being sarcastic. Okay? And I say it because those quotes in the war of words are killing us.
Mm-hmm. So just for clarity, the mandate of the peace stabilization force is to demobilize, not to disarm at the moment.
We don't know yet, because the International Stabilization Force is something that's only being built. Right now, there is a whole complex, the coordination complex, it is under the direct hierarchy in that rule, in the rules of engagement, under the United States, not under Israel. It sits in an Israeli location. It has within it already different countries that are in the room, where you have representatives, but there has not yet been any force physically sent into the Gaza Strip. All that it does right now is coordinates the entrance of humanitarian assistance into the Gaza Strip, and we're waiting to see the first actual physical international force that will enter into the Gaza Strip to be there instead of the Hamas guns being on the street. That has not yet happened. The only country that has said that it would send forces openly, at least Indonesia has said so. And in the last few days, Greece has said that they would send forces. Turkey has said that they would send civilian builders. They haven't said that they would send soldiers in uniform. Again, this is still being put together. And the longer it takes is the longer that Hamas is the one that is de facto ruling. And that's not good for the people of the Gaza Strip, and certainly not good for stability and for their capability to recuperate from this war.
My last question. So where does it leave Israel in its fight against terror?
Inside the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, inside the Gaza Strip.
Israel at this stage along the way, our focus is on rebuilding domestically. I want to remind everybody, 150,000 Israelis, which is a small number in Indian terms, but it's a large number in Israeli terms, were totally removed from their communities. And our military prowess is right now being held back. And I say held back. We continue to discern and attack any kind of Hamas capability that they're going to use against us. We still are physically in large portions of the Gaza Strip. We didn't leave all of the Gaza Strip in October of 2025. We still sit there. So that stage of what Israel would like would be a serious international force that would be an alternative to Hamas on the street. Israel's demand is that international force will disarm Hamas. I am saying now, as an Israeli, not as the prime minister, not as the government, not in the demands, I'm saying as an Israeli, that I do not see any international force actually disarming them. And that leaves a gap between what Israel needs and demands and between what's going to happen. And I give that gap as something that I don't know what Israel will do. Will we then go in and continue, as said, to destroy the tunnels underground, to destroy the Hamas military terror capabilities? I think in the meantime, we're going to do it in the areas where we still are deployed. I don't know how we'll be able to do so if there's an international force inside the additional area of the Gaza Strip.
Thank you so much, Colonel Miri. I wanted so much clarity on so many things, and I must say I'm more aware now. And I will not give into any kind of speculation because we get to hear a lot of experts, But it is always a pleasure and very insightful whenever I've got an opportunity to speak with you, because I learn so much. And by the way, 150,000 people in India also would mean a lot if they are going through a traumatic exercise. So our Prime Minister has said,
really, thank you so much for inviting me. I so appreciate being able to talk to you, to your audience, and that we should always have open, clear conversations. I think that makes all the difference.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. Please take care and stay safe.
Okay. Peace. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate it.